Hi, and good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Black Robe Podcast. It's your girl, Anzhane here, of course, sitting with the lovely Carol Mitchell. How are you doing, Miss Founder?
I am doing very well because it's more than 50 degrees outside.
Right? Oh my gosh, that snow that we got over this past weekend, I think it hit a lot of us by surprise. We
And,
were not
and
expecting.
Texas has it now. It has moved on over to Texas, and they have no clue how to handle it. Something like I don't know, million people are out of
Wow.
power, and
Yeah.
and people are suffering from carbon monoxide poisoning because they're sleeping in their cars trying to stay warm because they have no power.
Oh
It's
my
it's
goodness.
tragic.
Yeah, that sounds tragic. I mean, how does a place prepare for something that never happens? Do we need to have a plan for even the oddest event, right? When would Texas think that they were going to get some snow? But hey, we're praying for them. They're going to get through it. It'll melt over. And then maybe next year they'll be a little bit more prepared, huh?
It'll melt and then they'll have a flood because it's flat. It's not like here where we have hills and things roll down
Uh-oh.
and into back on into the ocean because the water always seeks to get back to where it began. So it's going to roll on down, but they have nothing but flat ground. So the water just stands still. It doesn't roll.
Wow.
So they're going to have an issue when the snow melts with flooding. They're going to have to
Yeah.
really be prepared for it. But I'm very glad that we're here tonight because we have somebody that's going to warm our audience's heart. We've had some really good crystal stair stories these last couple of weeks because in the midst of
Mm-hmm.
all the national foolishness, which we're
Yes.
not even going to talk about because frankly, nobody was surprised at the acquittal. I don't
Right. The
even want to
second,
take any time. I just went,
yeah.
oh, when they announced it because you
I
knew.
know, right? It was only a matter of time. I mean, this was the second impeachment trials. But like you said, we are not going to waste our time. We don't have time today to waste on Trump. Okay. We have some really amazing guests, as you were saying, as we've been having this whole month. And I really think that it's important. It's Black History Month, right? Let's highlight as many amazing individuals and organizations as possible, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what the IBJ is here for. That is what the Black Robe podcast, part of our platform, are these crystal stair stories. But before we dive in, it is the Black Robe, you know, and it wouldn't be right unless we were sharing some information that could really benefit our community. So, Carol, update us on some legislation. We need the community to really be, to really be keeping their eye out right now.
Um, what can I say? I think Crosscut, the online newspaper, said it best when, in an opinion that they wrote, they said that it's like lipstick on a pig
Mm-hmm.
because our King County prosecutor and our Pierce County prosecutor have joined with 13 or 14 other prosecutors across the nation trying to avoid doing something that is probably one of the most helpful changes in the law that um, could support juvenile justice. And
Mm-hmm.
Black and brown children, people of color, 80% of those
Mm-hmm.
in King County who stand in front of a judge as a juvenile, 80% of them are people of color. And so that the change in the law that basically says that judges need to have the discretion to treat that child as a child and not treat them as an adult for purposes of sentencing. Now, it's not to say that young people don't commit adult crimes, but the legislature is now trying to codify this rule that in Substitute Senate Bill 5120, Senator Jeannie Darnell, who is the champion of, of
Mm-hmm.
um, justice and accountability with respect to individuals who are justice involved. She's done a tremendous amount of work on this
Oh
topic.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And so
For
this
our
bill,
viewers,
right?
mhm,
Yeah, go ahead.
our viewers that have been watching the Black Girl podcast for some time, we actually had Senator Jeannie Darnell, the same champion that we're talking about right now, on our very own podcast, like, and educating us all on how felons actually can vote in the state of Washington. So she's not just a champion for juvenile rights, but she's also a champion for prisoners' rights. She's a champion for felons' rights because she understands the historical oppression, right? She understands mass incarceration and how it's been targeting Black and brown people. She's seen the studies, and then she actually follows up on them, and she holds these systems accountable, right? But through bills like this. So I know, Carol, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to remind everybody that she got a track record. She's she's with it for sure.
Right,
And
right. And what's the point of doing all of these studies and looking at all the data when every time you have the US Supreme Court, the Washington Supreme Court, who are aligned around this, and yet you have prosecutors who have decided it's inconvenient because they've got a backlog of cases because, oh, God forbid, they should have to work for the hundreds of thousands of dollars they get paid every year. They don't want to deal with all the backlog of cases because now they'd have to go back and review all of these cases where a juvenile was sentenced as an adult and where the judge did not use his or her discretion to take into consideration that that child was a child at the time that they
right, exactly.
crime. And so it's like in Monopoly, go back to go, right? Go back to start.
Exactly.
Not collect $200. You got to go back and have another look. And here's our point. We believe that a child's interest in liberty, in being free to grow up outside of a cage is much more of a priority than your docket being backed up. Create a special docket. If you're worried about the docket being backed up, create a special docket with a special group of judges that's all they do is go back and look at these sentencing cases. But don't give us the excuse that we don't have time, it's too many cases, we shouldn't have to go back and reopen all these cases, we're too busy, COVID-19.
Yeah.
Those arguments.
Quite frankly, our criminal justice system has always been backlogged, right? I mean,
what's new?
What is new? You knew exactly what you were getting into. I don't care. You're a prosecutor and not a public defender, so you don't think that your cases should be, overwhelming? No. I mean, if you want there to be less people in your courts that you have to now prosecute, well, then let's work on some other solutions that isn't forcing them to punishment, right? How do we cut risk on crime, beforehand, right? Let's not talk about these retroactive ways to kind of find solutions. No, we have to be proactive. We have to put resources in education, resources in social, programs, right? So that we can support people so that they don't have to resort into robberies, so that they don't have to resort into, right? Isn't that how you cut down your caseload? I mean, I just want to say, and then the other point about, Crosscut, I love them for being so, clear with their wording, lipstick on a pig, because even the word pig has a lot of symbolism, right? But no, the lipstick is so true, because this is the same King County prosecutor that prides himself on reducing juvenile delinquency, right? The zero youth detention. And well, I gotta tell you, just by saying, by charging them as adults instead of youth does not answer, that is not the cure to this problem. you know,
Well, I
and
guess it does decrease juvenile detention because it puts them over in the adult system. And
exactly.
until recently, they went into that system when they were barely 18. Right now, at least I think they stay in the juvenile rehabilitation system until they're closer to 25, which brain science tells us, neuroscience, for folks who just, don't want to believe what we have to say. Check the
Right, exactly.
neuroscience, brain science, and child development says that
Mhm.
brain is still developing until a person is 25 years old, which means the same child that you won't let drive until they're 18 or 19,
Mhm.
right? That insurance
Right,
companies
right.
don't want to insure until they're 26. That same child
Mhm.
shouldn't be standing in front of an adult court being sentenced as an adult because they are still developing. Their judgment's still developing. They're still
Mhm.
subject to peer pressure. They're
Yeah.
not fully 100% finished developing. And then throw in trauma, in
Right.
having trauma in the environment they grew up in or in the communities that they're trying to grow up in. All of that is at play when a child gets into the kind of trouble that would lead them with an adult charge. And let's not forget, prosecutors have a choice about what they
Mm.
charge that child with and whether that child will be charged as an adult, will be tried as an adult. And so
Mhm.
nobody puts a check on that prosecutorial discretion. Nobody. They can do whatever they want to do, really. I've seen
Yeah.
cases in Pierce County where people have just sat in jail waiting to be charged, and then they get
Uh-huh.
let go, no charges filed, sometimes days and days and weeks after they were arrested. Why? Because some prosecutor has decided that it's just not that important. Well, we think it's important. Substitute Senate Bill
Absolutely.
5120 must be passed in order to codify this rule that judges and courts have got to take into consideration what the brain science is telling us and treat our children as children, just like they
Mm.
do at school, at work. There's minor work laws, right? You have laws that
Right.
protect children everywhere else. All right, we
Mm.
need this law to protect children in the courts.
Absolutely. And we also have to pass it because if this US bill is approved, right, then doesn't that also cut out anyone who's looking to reopen their case due to some of the bills and protections that we have here within the state, right? There are juveniles that are looking to have their cases reopened, right, and to have their sentences reduced because they weren't just, right? If this bill
Their
passed,
chance would be gone. Their chance
gone.
of doing that would be gone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important for justice's sake. And, sometimes we have to go back and redo things as
Mm-hmm.
laws change. I mean, if we didn't go back and do things, we would still have all white juries.
Right.
But the law says you need to be tried by a jury of your peers. Well, there was a very long time in our history where juries were all white. And so, yes, you
Yeah.
do have to go back sometimes and change the
Mm-hmm.
rules because justice requires it of us. And it's not
Absolutely.
just when convenient. Justice is
Mm-hmm.
sometimes inconvenient, but
Yeah.
it's necessary. Okay, I'm off my box.
No,
Substitute
it's
Senate
so
Bill 5120. Be there or be
51.
square.
Yes, yes, because no more of our youth under 18 need to be charged as adults. Period, point blank. I don't care what the prosecutors in King County believe and what the Pierce County prosecutor believes. Hey, just because it's inconvenience for you, imagine the lives that you're impacting, that you're, destroying, right? I mean, for
Yeah.
the people that
And
for the people that are,
they don't care because it's not their child, right? If it was their
well,
child, there would be a whole different response to this. But because it's mostly Black and brown children, that a lot of prosecutors, and I'm sorry to say, behave as if they're throwaway children. Fortunately, in Pierce County, we've changed our probation. We've transformed probation so that we don't hold children in jail for things that, truancy used to get you held at Raymond Hall. What? That's not even a crime, but it was an excuse to hold our children for a long, long time. And so, thank goodness those rules have changed. And now the court has said, go back and take a look at these young people's cases. Sorry if it's inconvenient and it's going to cause your dockets to clog up. Sorry, do it because justice requires it.
Yes.
I am so happy that you have brought some good news tonight as well, because otherwise I would be in a bad mood for the rest of the week.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that we're able to brighten up your week here on Tuesday. Oh, yes, we're taping on Tuesday, guys. So for the rest of your week, you're gonna have a great week. But yes, let's get to our special guest today. His name is Josias Jean-Pierre, guys. And the reason why we need to support bills like, the Senate Bill 5120 is so that we can have more individuals like this guy right here. Josias, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good.
Good. Well, no, I was just telling our viewers about how, just amazing what you're doing with your books. Can you talk a little bit about where you're from, for all of our viewers to kind of get a little background on who you are, and then what you're currently up to?
Gotcha. I'm originally from the Caribbean island of Haiti. I grew up here in SeaTac, Washington. I'm an author, motivational speaker, educator, a mentor. I mentor youth from Pierce County to King County. I'm over 100 youth. I mentor. I have a team of mentorship where we mentor youth. And, imagery of what Blackness looks like, authentic manhood looks like, what does that mean? So breaking that imagery of what the media says and show them, hey, this is where we are. Because, I feel like people don't think about, when people think about Black people, they think of the negative messages, but they don't think about, hey, half of the stuff you have at home is created from Black people.
Right. Yeah, the street light was created by a Black person. Okay, that peanut butter that you put on your PB&J was created by a Black person. No, I mean,
your fiber optic cable, your makeup, all Black people.
Oh yeah, the list goes on and on and on. So I love that we have you on our show because we're really able to shine that light on the positive narrative of what young Black people are out here doing right now, right? So tell us, Josiah, you wrote 2 books now. Can you tell us a little bit about your first book, right? The Power of Words. Tell us about that.
So my first book came out in 2016 called The Power of Your Words. The reason I wrote this book was because of this. By looking at me, you wouldn't notice that there was an issue with me. As a kid, I was diagnosed with epilepsy, seizures. And I was told throughout the years from K to 12 as you're someone with epilepsy, you have a disability, you have an IEP. So what makes you think your story will be heard? So throughout the years, I heard from educators and peers to throw in the towel, to give up. And after everything was done, I graduated, went to college with a full ride scholarship. And someone, hey, how were you able to finish this race in the midst when everybody speaking negativity and everybody around you was speaking just garbage too, how did you stick in the race and not give up? And I realized, wow, and over the other, I realized, wow, Josiah, you spoke life into your life. I was speaking my life. So I was speaking it so much to the point that it turned into a strong belief. So no matter what anybody else said about me, those words became my fuel to keep on going. It didn't deter me from where I really want to be. And as a young kid, I always, wrote my goals on paper, right? I always tell people, hey, write your dreams on paper, write it, declare it, believe it, write it, declare it, believe it, and keep on doing it over and over and over again. So the power of your words just came to be, I wrote it because of the fact that I realized that the words I spoke over my life and declared and believed was my fuel to keep on going no matter what. Because, your words have the power to create 2 things. It has the power to destroy and leave curses. It has the power to create and elevate and leave blessings. And if we're not careful with what we speak over our lives, we'll find ourselves reaping destructions instead of reaping blessings. That's my first book. My second book, What is Your Why Behind the Drive? I wrote this book because all my books are self-help books. self-help, inspirational, motivational books, life stories. I always tell people that I may not have a piece of paper to be in your field, but my life story qualifies me more than a piece of paper. So my second book is called What Is Your Why Behind the Drive? I wrote this book last year, came out in February last year. And the reason why I wrote that, I'm always on the go, right? I always tell people, hey, I'm an entrepreneur first, right? If it's in you, it's in you. If it's not, it's not, but it's in me. And so I keep on going. And a lot of people were like, how did you keep on going? And why do you keep, doing what you're doing every single time you don't take a break? I'm like, what, my why is my reason why I got to keep on going. And I live my life like this. Live your life like it's your last day. So take that day to give your all in everything that you do. So when I'm waking up, I'm going hard because of the fact that, hey, I got a reason and my legacy depends on it, right? And I always tell people all the time, it's not your fault that these cards were given to you, but it'll be your fault if you choose to repeat it. And my why is like, hey, I can't let this carry on over and over and over again. So with me, it got to stop. With me, I have to break. With me, I got to keep on going to make sure what I leave behind after me is blessings and generational blessings afterwards.
That's a beautiful philosophy. And people sometimes forget those who believe that the world was created, it was God that spoke, right? Mm-hmm. So speaking things into existence and that creative power that's really consistent with the creation of the whole world, if you believe, as I do, that the world was created. And so I'm wondering, what was it that you spoke over yourself? Did you say author? Did you say NFL football player? What did you say that has now manifested in the life you're currently living?
Okay, so I was in 8th grade. I'm only 20, so I was in 8th grade at Chinook Middle School in SeaTac, Washington, and I watched Martin Luther King. Before that, I always seen assemblies and Martin Luther King assemblies, but for some reason this time I watched the video, and what I realized about that is the key word there is have. So no matter what time it was, no matter what day it was, his word always, I have a dream. And usually when we have dreams, we tell our friends or our coworkers, we're like, I had a dream. We can past tense, but his was very present no matter what time it was, which reminded me, hey, he has a vision. So I remember sitting there in 8th grade, you're someone with epilepsy, you have IEP, special need. What can you do? Right? I have an option to either, let the circumstance determine my final message in my life, or let that become a fuel to why I keep on going to do something different about it. So I tell myself, I have a dream that one day I'm going to empower communities. I'm going to, travel around the world and speak and empower and become some of an influence. I have a dream that I'm going to speak in city halls and city events. I have and this is me declaring I have statements. And I just keep on writing on paper, declaring it, believing it. And so from there on, what happened was at 17 years old, my senior year in high school, I got asked to be one of the keynote speakers out in Kansas City, Missouri at an OSHA conference, which is for American School Health Association in Kansas City, Missouri, where I was one of 4 young keynote speakers, speaking in front of 1,000 educators, lawyers, doctors, businesses around mental health. Also, how to talk to young teens, of teens awareness. From there on, what happened is I started finding myself manifesting different things. So at 17, was my first speaking engagement. At 18, I worked at the higher education student ambassador, where I traveled around and spoke with kids from King County to Pierce County. And I was working at Highline College at the time as a student ambassador, where I share my story. And I'll share my story to young kids, young boys. And I realized, Josiah, your story needs to be heard. Your story is powerful because people don't believe they can because of the circumstance. So I'm able to use my story as someone who was, hey, I didn't have the best relationship with my father. But look, I didn't go, I was in a system where, the government system, but look where I'm at now. Mm-hmm. I want to go share my story, tell these kids, hey, be your final message. There's still hope, there's still breakthrough for you, there's still a chance for you. At 19 years old, my first book came out. Then, my second book came out after that. I have 2 more books coming out pretty soon. The third book. Are you
self-published, or do you have a publisher and an editor and all that other stuff? And how did you get all of that?
Yeah, so I have I have editors who edit my books and edit and cover magazine, but I self-publish it. I'm an indie author. I self-publish it and do everything myself, but I do have people who edit it before it goes out.
Well,
Wow.
Anzhane had a stat about you. She had a stat about one of your accomplishments, that you are on a very special list.
Definitely. No, he was definitely on a very prestigious list. But before we just kind of, get to the good stuff, how did you become a self-publisher? Can we, share that information with our viewers, for those other young, inspiring authors? I know that there might be some online routes. What was the route that you took? If someone has an idea for a book, how can they become a self-publisher?
Yeah, so there's many self-publishing companies out there. So what I did was I used Create Space, which is through Amazon. So I wrote my manuscript, wrote my book, and I went to search around. I did a lot of research about self-publishing and publishing. Self-publishing, you own it. It's more you do it yourself. You do the work yourself. If you go to publishing companies, it's like a cut 80-20. So you might go ahead and go publish a company. They keep 80%, you keep 20%. And
they keep 80%. Oh, so no.
Good. And
Anzhane thought that 80 was on your side of the balance.
I was like, I can take my 20. I'll tip it off to the big guy, but I'll keep the 80.
It really all depends on the publishing company you go with, where they keep majority of the pie, because of the fact they do all your marketing, they do all your PRs, they do all the hard work that you wouldn't have to do as an indie author. People already booked me as a speaker and always asking me, hey, how can I get more information about what you have to say, what you have to do? So I was like, you know what, let me write a book about it. And from there on, that's the reason why I did self-publishing. But there's Create Space, which is different now from Amazon. There are a lot of self-publishing companies out there. I'll say do a lot of research on what's best for you. Who I went through for my last book was a Black-owned publishing company called Life Chronicles Publishing, with Sharon Blake. If you guys need a publisher, that's the one I go to right now. She's local in Washington State. She's a Black-owned publishing company that I use for my second.
Love it. Yeah, we would love to have her information. Maybe we could post a link on the Institute for Black Justice's Facebook page, because that's what the Black and Black Justice is for.
Yep, that's right, Carol. That is so right. No, Josiah, this is amazing. Thank you for, sharing all your tea and your story. It sounds like you taking that belief and that mindset, along with, your tools for success, right? Writing things down, visioning, something that you can't even see, but you have a dream, right? And that you've had since you were in the 8th grade, working on that, continuing that grind and pushing yourself to achieve your goals has landed you on this list, this list that I read about on Yahoo Finance, right? They just released this article, February 12th, I believe, saying that Josiah, you are one of the top 10 African-American influencers for 2021. Talk to us about that. First of all, like, when you got on that list, like, how did that make you feel? Did that, is this the end for you? Is this just is this the middle, the beginning of a new chapter? Yeah, let's shine some light on that.
I was in tears. I was in tears. Because I have a vision board, but I don't create new visions until my board is gone, it's done. So I was like, chapter 27 is gonna be a big chapter. I don't know what it meant. So by the time before 2020 was over, my vision board was gone. It was like everything was done, everything was complete. What's next? Like, everything I see is has manifested. Like, God, what do you have next? Whatever you're doing, God, don't do it without me. But I don't know what else to put down for a vision board. And literally, a pastor prophesied over my life before the year was over. And he said, you have to get ready because your territory is expanding. And I'm like, what does that mean? My territory is expanding. He goes, you don't know what it means, but just know you have to get ready. I'm like, okay, I'll get ready. So when I got that report from Yahoo Finance that I'm one of the top, I was in tears just because of the fact that, one, you can't find my message on YouTube. I don't have no marketing presence. I'm not on YouTube. So if you can find me, because I don't have no YouTube videos. But my message has people all around, from California to Oregon, from all the 50 states. You know, I was featured on New York Weekly, LA Wire, The American Reporter, all recently, all in 2021.
Yeah. Wow.
And
oh
I didn't know, like, whoa, what? And I'm answering
That's God
questions.
right there. That's God
And
moving in ways you can't even
so
see.
when I got that notification, right? Because number one, who's number one? You know?
Ice Cube, I saw was number one. So that's like,
so when I see
big
who
people.
I'm sitting with and who's on the table that I'm with as one of the top 10, I was like, oh, wow. Like, really? Like, are you serious? Like, is this a joke? Because I'm always in industry, right? Each one to each one. I want to be able to reach somebody else, have them get an impact, and let that be the person reach somebody else. And my goal was never, hey, because I'm called to the front lines. I'm called to this. And my thing is, if I'm called to it, I don't want nothing back in return. I want them to just give somebody else the same information that they got.
Very good. I think I love your philosophy. I have a vision board too. I believe in that you do have to be able to see, right? You have to write that vision and make it plain, and then you can run with it, right? But you do have to be able to see that future. I do like the fact too that you want to replicate yourself, because really that's the key, right? There's only one of you, and at some point you have to be able to replicate Josiah's in the world, because maybe the next big step is to have an international presence, right? You seem to have mastered the United States, so now, hey, maybe it's time to go home to Haiti and see what you can do about their government situation over there.
Wow, yeah.
With the president trying to be president for another year. Like, no, bro, your term is up. It's time to go. I don't know what's wrong with us in the world where presidents don't want to leave. It's like some kind of a sickness.
They thought the eviction moratoriums included presidential seats or something. I don't know. But wow,
I'm wondering about your Haitian, your Caribbean heritage, and what your family thinks of what you're doing. Did anybody expect that you would ever have this kind of fame and fortune?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I say that because ever since I was a kid, I'm also an evangelist. Ever since I was a kid, I've been telling folks about God. And, you know, my dad is a bishop. He is a pastor. And there's times I preach at his church. And ever since I was a kid, folks would be like, come on, pastor, come on, pastor, come on, pastor. But I'm like, I'm not a pastor. I was like, just because I know how to bring the word doesn't mean I'm a pastor. You know, okay? That's a dangerous thing to call yourself if you're not called to it. I was like, I'm called to ministry, but not to run a church, not a pastor or anything like that. But when folks see me preaching, they're like, oh, yeah, you're about to go somewhere. You're about to go somewhere. Like, you know, I see a pastor calling in your life. I'm like, nah, it's not that. It's more, it's not that. It's more of, you know, just going outside the four walls of the church. But my mom always told me, like, use your voice, you know, use your voice. You know, people need to hear what you got to say. My friend, my family told me the same thing, use your voice. You know, I'm the only one in my family that was diagnosed with epilepsy. The only one. I'm the only one in my family that has a disability.
Well, Josiah, tonight, I think, sometimes I think the technology operates in such a way that it tries to interfere with a message that it knows is really going to help and heal people. I really believe sometimes that just happens.
Yeah.
And so I want you to repeat what you just said, because when we get this edited, which it will be, I don't want people to miss this prophetic word that you're speaking right now, because I think sometimes our family, our friends, they love us, but they prophesy something over us that really isn't the design or the purpose for which we were born. And so we spend half our lives living into their vision instead of living into the one that God has given us. And it sounds like you just from the very beginning were clear. You can call me pastor, but I'm an evangelist. I'm a writer. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I'm a person who uses my words to heal and to help. So please repeat what you were saying about the family sort of thinking that maybe this was a pastor about to be born and you saw things just a little differently.
Well, definitely. So since I was a kid, I've been telling folks about Christ since I was a kid. I got suspended in school for telling folks Jesus loves you. But I wouldn't get suspended for fighting though in elementary school. I would get suspended for telling folks Jesus loves you, but I would not get suspended for fighting somebody. So basically what happened was I've been doing evangelism work since I was a kid, and my dad is a bishop, he's a pastor, and he had his own church, and I would preach at his church at times. And the Haitians and also the non-Haitian pastor, I was like, no, I'm not a pastor. I was like, I know I'm called to be outside the four walls of the church, but not within the church. Street ministry, that's my thing, going to street ministry and going to the highways and byways where folks don't want to go to relay a message. And that was me, and I knew I was called to that. So from there on, what's been going on is I'm the only one in my family that was diagnosed with epilepsy, the only one with a disability in my family. And from a kid, my parents will always say, yeah, you got a message, don't stay silent because the devil want to silence you. My father always tells me this. The devil wants to silence you. You have a calling in your life, and make sure you tap into the calling, because the devil will do anything they can to make sure you don't step into what you got to do. And as much as my parents always say pastor, 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 I'm like, no, no, no. And I will tell them, it's not that I'm rejecting it. It's just that I know it's not what God has for me.
Yeah, you have to be clear about your own purpose. And like you said, you wrote it down, you wrote that vision down. So I know, Anzhane, we can't go too much longer here, but I want to make sure that Josias, we once again get the name of your two books and where people can find them and buy them for themselves. I don't know if they're electronic books or downloads, or if there's a old school physical copy for people like me that actually like to feel that book and smell it.
Yeah. There's an old school physical copy.
Hallelujah.
So if you could go to Barnes and Noble, Amazon. It's really on every online major bookstore online. You just put my name, Josias Jean-Pierre, will pop up on Barnes and Noble right there. Also on Amazon for you also.
I love it. Love it. Well, thank you again, Josias, for joining us today. You are a counter narrative that just, goes against any sort of stereotype for a Black man, right? We really need, going back to our legislation, right? This is why we have to protect our young Black men from being charged as adults, right? It would take away their future. And look, Josias is here from Washington State. Went to CTAC and Federal Way public school districts, right? Had an IEP. This does not mean that, he needed to go down the route of criminality, right? Instead, he was able to take his education and his mindset and really transform that into a product, right? Into health and healing for other people. So we have to protect our Black men out here. Josias, thank you again for stopping by the Black Robe podcast. We wish you the best of luck on your future endeavors and books that you have to come. Carol, is there any last words that you have for Josias?
I just want to say that I'm always thrilled. I'm a big fan of Anzhane's because she's got her own crystal stair story, and just it's such a beautiful example of what is possible when young people just focus in on the purpose for which they were born. And so we're just pleased to be able to highlight you tonight. Thank you for using your life the way that you're using it. You're touching so many other young people just by your mere presence on the planet, just by being who you are and using that voice of yours to help and to heal. So thank you so much, Josias Jean-Pierre. Very nice to meet you tonight.
You too. Thank you for having me.
All righty, guys. Well, Carol, if you don't mind, let's put Josias back in the waiting room and let's close our viewers out. We're going into our last week of February. This is going to be, we're closing out Black History Month, guys.
Yeah, bye, Josias.
And we're going to do it. We're going to do it with a bang. I think our next episode, Carol, we're going to just have a discussion. We've been featuring a lot of beautiful stories and organizations, but I think it's time for us to get down to some talking, right? We need a little dialogue.
Yes, yeah. Especially about all of these police accountability bills that, you know, and there's all sorts of foolishness around it because there are these limits that the legislature even wants to place on the number of bills, and deciding that if a bill is going to be controversial and take up too much time, then maybe it won't get off the floor. Just foolishness like that.
Yeah.
Using COVID-19 and you know, the volume of work as an excuse for not doing the job for which you were elected. Hey, if you got to work past 4:30 to get it done some days, then work past 4:30. You are there to serve the interests of the public. We elected you to do that. So don't tell us COVID-19 prevents you from carrying out the duties of your job. You just gotta get creative, get innovative, learn how to use technology like Anzhane has trained me to do. So you can get the job done. All right.
Absolutely.
Senate Bill 5120. I'm just going to repeat that. Then maybe we'll talk more about that too next week.
Sounds good, Carol. I'm all for the conversation. And I still want to just shout out our Freedom Summer Symposium. Yes. Guys, this leadership symposium, we're working hard behind the scenes, but we got some, you know, juicy content coming out to the public here soon about this event. It's going to be huge. It's going to be paid, right, for a select number of 18 to 35-year-olds that are passionate about their community and want to see some substantial change. So stay tuned for all upcoming information about that. And that's it for today's episode of the Black Road Podcast.
Yeah, we'll see you next time on the Black Road.
See you then. Bye, guys.
Bye.
We tired of talking, got black bodies riding in jails and in coffins. Said we tired of talking, got black bodies riding in jails and in coffins. Nobody coming like we do, started it over like we do. Still fighting for better ways, cause nothing's gonna get them a lethal. Baby, it's getting up, we was not meant to be equal. I know there's better days, but it's up to you to receive them. For years I ain't complained, I ain't never changed. To your love in every race, we was made the same. It's time to read between the lines, not the script they gave.